Okay, so welcome to our Flourishing Business Community webinar. And I'm Andrea Morrison, and yeah, it's so lovely to have you on here. And I'm really excited to be sharing this information with you and working this through with you. I think it's just lovely to have this opportunity. And just a bit of housekeeping to start with, that this webinar is being recorded and the video will be shared with all of you that have subscribed and have registered to receive the video. But the audio recording will also be available publicly, so that at some point may well go up onto my website. So just to make you all aware of that. There are opportunities for questions, and there is a chat box. So if you want to post me a little question as I'm going through the content, then feel free and make full use of that. I will only identify you by your first name, or if you don't want me to identify you at all, then that's absolutely fine. I don't mind. I just wanted to make you aware that obviously this isn't like a group coaching call where it is just the privacy of those who are attending. So tonight's webinar is all about fear of failure, and this is a subject that is really close to my heart. It's something that I've experienced firsthand in many, many different ways. And fear of failure is like that. It's a very broad church, if you like, and because it comes in so many different forms. And certainly the way that I experienced it, it was very sneaky. It wasn't like a big kind of like, oh my goodness, I can't possibly do that type of fear. It was a very kind of subtle fear, but one that kept me very, very stuck. And so often when people say to me, oh, I don't have a fear of failure, I'm kind of more curious about them, because I would have said that I didn't have a fear of failure. But actually, as I understood more and more about the nature of it, the more I saw that I did actually have quite an entrenched fear of failure. Now, in my previous kind of professional life, when I look back, I can see just how safely I played my profession and my career. I kept, and some may say rightly so, and some may say rightly so, Can you hear me now? Somebody said they couldn't hear me. Sorry. Okay, yeah. So I don't know when I kind of went out there. Okay, I can hear somebody else. There we go. It's just, okay. So, yeah, so if I go back to like the, in my business. So in my business, you might say that I was a risk taker. Obviously, I've started businesses. I've taken opportunities. I've done different projects where I've not always known what the outcome is. But it was really, and this is where I think it's really sneaky, this fear of failure and how it kind of sneaks in, is that in terms of the smaller things, there was a fear of failure. So I would think about, oh, I'll do such and such an event. And then I talk myself out of it because I think, well, what if nobody turns up? You know, I don't want to have that public fear of failure of promoting something and then having to say, oh, well, I'm not doing it anymore. You know, I'd rather just not do it in the first place. Or if I had a particular program or a product, you know, what if nobody bought it? What if I went to all this time and this expense of putting it all together and it didn't go anywhere? It just fell flat on its face. Or what if I put up my prices and nobody buys from me and I'm left destitute, you know, or my business will then fail? What about that? Advertising, you know, so many different areas that are coming to mind. You know, advertising, you know, I don't want to put an advert in a paper because what if I don't get anything back from that? You know, what if I don't recoup my money? It's such a lot of investment. What if I don't get anything back? Having conversations with clients, you know, this fear of not really wanting to close and not wanting to talk about money or how much it's going to cost, and really going up in my head about it because I didn't want them to say no. And having that feeling of like, oh, yet another conversation that they don't, you know, they don't work with me. Another opportunity lost. So there were lots of different areas in my business, and all of those actually put together would mean, you know, whether my business is working or not, because unless I got over all those little hurdles, I wouldn't actually have a business. And so you can see it wasn't like this big fear that kind of just leapt me in the face. You know, it wasn't huge as you would expect a fear of failure to be. It was all these kind of little micro fears that I had, and I'm sure like we all have, that was stopping me from growing, stopping me from building the business that I would absolutely love to build. And so what did I do? Well, I tried lots of different things to like overcome it because, well, you know, it became quite obvious to me that there were things that weren't working. So one thing that I would do is I would ask people for advice. You know, well, what do you think? You know, if I do this, do you think it's going to work? If I do this event, do you think people are going to turn up? Do you think people are going to buy from me, from this product, or whatever it was? And of course, as I'm sure you've experienced as well, I got like 100 different responses, like, you know, based on all their experience and all their fears and all the times it had gone wrong for them. And so I was no further clearer. It was just like even more kind of muddle in my head, you know. Or I do the, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway, which is kind of like, you know, the thing that we all get told to do, which was just exhausting. You know, because I'd literally have to pull every single resource together and then just dread it happening because I'd be replaying all these things that were going to go wrong and how I would feel at the end of it, you know. Or I'd try and predict the future. You know, like when you use your kind of your past experience, you know, and you think, well, that event worked well and that event didn't work well and I learned this and and you take bits from all the different bits and then you try to think, wow, I think on balance it might work, you know. So it was like this calculated risk, which again was like, you know, hugely kind of time consuming and very, you know, took all my energy because I would be trying to computate every single possible outcome and try and predict it and balance it and think it all through, you know. And so then I just let somebody else in on the call. There we go. And so then what I tried to do is try and use technique. Okay, so I tried to overcome my fear. All right, because well, that's the kind of traditional way that we do things, and I'm not going to knock the different techniques because some of them worked really well, and some worked really well for me, but none of them really kind of got rid of it. It was still kind of lurking, or it would be like whack-a-mole. It would pop up in a different form somewhere else, and I'd have to deal with it in another way. So, I mean, I tried everything, because I felt, well, this must be like a confidence thing, or maybe I just need to be more resilient. I need to grow some, and all of this. So, I try like different hypno or NLP or EFT, and then I trained and everything, to try and like fix me in some way. But it was always the same. I could always create a scenario where I didn't pass that mark. And so I didn't want to do it. And if I didn't want to do it, it didn't get done, I didn't want to take that risk. Okay. And what I'm talking about here is like a real fear that I had. It wasn't like it wasn't just like a little mini conversation in my head. This was kind of full on, kind of like, I really don't want to do this. I had the real kind of same fear that I'd have if you put me in a room of snakes or something. It was like, I was really kind of quite fearful, because I wanted guarantees that whatever kind of micro decision I was going to make, that it was going to be okay, that I would pass, that it would work. And I had this expectation that everything had to work. Everything I touched had to work. And I needed a guarantee. I needed to be able to look into the future and guarantee that it was going to be okay. And when I say kind of micro decisions, I said, these fears were like really subtle, like really, really subtle. Like not just, oh, I'm scared, although I had that kind of feeling. It was, it was the kind of the, what if this, what if that, I couldn't make any decisions in case I got it wrong, because I wanted it to be right. I had this kind of, I'm a bit of a closet perfectionist, or I used to be. I'd like to think I'm kind of in recovery now, but I had to be right. It had to be right, and, or, I'd hold myself back in some way, or I'd overthink things, or, I'd worry, as I said, worry that things weren't perfect. Or I would worry that, things just had to be just so before I did anything, and so then I'd kind of really struggle with this implementation of the decisions that I'd make. So I'd say, oh yeah, we do this. And I'd make all these decisions. I'd have this wonderful plan. But then when it came to it, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put it in place. I wouldn't carry it through. And these were all fears of failure, that I had, and look, there's no kind of judgment in this, because, as I say, I got caught up in all of this, and I know we all do, but yeah, I want to pick up on this idea of perfection, because I wanted, and I see this so often, especially with entrepreneurs, especially when we've had like a career in the past, especially if it's corporate career and we've come over, everything has to be perfect. All right. I needed to have that perfect outcome, or what I thought was a perfect outcome, and I needed that guarantee. And well, when I came to this kind of understanding, when I was introduced to this understanding, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll say this again and again in every single webinar, because it's so important, because when I first came to this understanding, I really thought, oh, well, that's just a nice concept. Yeah, okay, but that doesn't apply to me. All right, I kind of thought I was special in some way. I thought I was really complex, or that I was the exception to the rule, or whatever. But I didn't have any massive light bulb moment, and some coaches would say, oh my goodness, it was as though somebody had turned on full beam and I could see everything clearly. I didn't have that. Okay, I had like lots of little very dodgy twinkly fairy lights go on one by one, and sometimes they go out for a while, and then sometimes they come back on again, and that's okay. All right, so I don't expect anybody to get this off the back of one half an hour, 45 minutes, however long I go on to talk for a webinar, because I didn't get it in that way at all. But when I really understood this, and when I really started to get to grips with it, when I really started to see it for myself, so not that I understood it intellectually, but when I really started to see it, it started to free my mind of all of this kind of fear stuff. Okay. And I could start to see what my fear really was. Now, for as long as I can remember, I thought, whatever form that fear took, I thought that fear was real. I thought it was real. I believed that there was a very, very real possibility, and not just a teeny weeny little percentage, like a real possible, tangible possibility that whatever it was I was telling myself was likely to happen could happen. And then I'd start weighing it all up. So I do loads and loads of thinking about it. Okay. But the bottom line is that I thought that what was ever in that melting pot was real. Which kind of sounds sensible, doesn't it? It is how we're all brought up to kind of make decisions. You know, we weigh it up, we look at our experience, we kind of think about it, we create some stuff about it, and then we kind of weigh it all up in a weighing scales, then we make our decision, okay? But the difficulty that I found with this is that I wouldn't take any action, which isn't quite so sensible when you're running your own business, or if you want to pursue a career, you know, because you don't go anywhere. And that's kind of like the bottom line, you know, you don't move. And it all started because I really believed that it was true. I really believed that it was true. It must be true because I was thinking it. And why wouldn't it be true if I was thinking it, you know? And so because I believed it was true, I needed to believe it. And if it had a scary feeling with it as well, you know, if I was getting a bit churned up about it and getting a bit like, oh, then it must be really true as well. It must be even more true. Because surely if you have feeling and you have thinking, then that must mean it's even more true than it was before. And then I started to learn that perhaps that wasn't the case. Perhaps that wasn't the case. So I just want to pick up a little bit about the perfectionism, because I think that I want to just put this in here just now. As I say, I was a complete perfectionist before I came to this understanding. I'd like to say I'm recovered in some way now, but as I say, everything had to be perfect. Everything had a place. Everything needed to be spot on. Or my website needed to be spot on. My copy, my business cards, my Facebook posts, any videos I used to record and then watch and analyze and rehearse, or my videos, my blogs. My blogs were an absolute nightmare because it would take me like 20 minutes to write a blog and probably the rest of the day to perfect it, because I would just keep going over and over and over and over and over again. Because deep down, you know, and when you're honest with yourself, you may see this too. Deep down, I didn't want to get it wrong. I didn't want to get into trouble. You know, I didn't want to fail in the broadest sense of the word. I didn't want to be below the bar that I'd set myself, which obviously was perfection, you know. And I thought if it was below the bar, then something, I don't know, I didn't even really articulate what would happen, but it felt like something really bad would happen if I did, you know. And the amount of time that I wasted on this perfectionist bit at the end, you know, the amount of opportunities I lost, the amount of clients I lost, the amount of Facebook stuff I could have put out there because I didn't think it was good enough, things I didn't pursue that I really could have done you know, probably even the money that I could have earned, because of all the time I didn't put my prices up because of all of that. You know, the list is just endless, where this kind of fear kind of creeps in time and time again, you know. And so what I'm really pointing to, I suppose, is that, and it is a solution to it. It is the solution, is that, you know, when I understood really what was going on, when I understood what it was that I was creating, and I know that's like a huge leap. It's a massive leap. It was a big leap for me because, and I pointed to it a little bit earlier in this webinar, but we have this amazing gift called thought. And it kind of blows my mind the more I sit with it and the more I study it. I use in a broad sense, but it's just an amazing gift. And, you know, just sit and think about your thought and the fact, you know, what would it be like if you didn't have it, you know? And we have this gift so that we can have this experience, this amazing experience of being human, you know, because without it, we wouldn't have this experience, you know? But it is very, very broad, you know, and we all have this thought. We have this constant thought, you know. It's like this amazing narrator that is just describing every single aspect of our life constantly, you know, telling us how we're feeling, what we're seeing, everything. Just creating it. It's like this audio. You know, what sprung to mind is, you know, my husband watches the cricket, and he listens to the cricket rather on Radio 5, which I try not to have any irritating thinking about. And sometimes I succeed and sometimes I fail miserably. But he listens to Radio 5. And if you ever listen to them describing the cricket, okay, cricket's incredibly dull in my opinion, my humble opinion. That's my perception. And they describe everything from the birds singing to the sky to the grass to everything, so that they can create a picture for you, because all you've got is the audio. All right. And in many ways, that is what our thought is doing. It is just creating these wonderful images for us. Yeah, we can see them, but we are interpreting it all the time with our thinking, you know. And in fact, what I wanted to share with you is a quote from Sid Banks' book called The Missing Link. I'll show you this. Okay, Reflections on Philosophy and Spirit. And Sid Banks was really the founder of the coaching work that I do. And he explains it like this. He says, thought on its own is a completely neutral gift. Thought is not reality, yet it is through thought that our realities are created. It is what we as humans put into our thoughts that dictate what we think of life. And maybe, you know, if you're listening to this on the recording, you might just want to pause there just for a minute and just allow those words to kind of sink in, because on the face of it, they're very simple. But when you sit with it, they can have a really profound impact. And even if you've heard it 100 times, and I've read that book tons of times, and I hear something different every time I read it. But here's how I see it. You know, he says that thought is neutral, and thought is neutral. It's like it just comes in and it's all exactly the same. Doesn't matter what we're thinking. It starts off completely neutral. And then it's us that kind of breathes life into it. You know, we bring it alive. We then create it for what it really is, you know. And what I realized is that this really depends on our mood. You know, what I saw for myself is that it really depended on my mood. I saw that if I was in a neutral mood, you know, when I was grounded, and we've all experienced that, you know, when we're kind of happy and we're hopeful and life is good and things are okay, then the fearful thinking, we're kind of able to more ignore it. It kind of just, it's like it's just grey, you know, it just has nothing attached to it. It just kind of dissipates. Yeah. But when I'm in a lower mood, when I'm in a lower mood, it seems more real to me. I get more sucked in by it. I give it more life. I attach more meaning to it. And that's when my fears, yeah, they feel real and scary and like I don't want to do it. And then I make decisions based on it. And that's where the implication comes for business. Because when we don't have that understanding, when we don't see this for ourselves, we believe that when we're in that lower mood and we have all those fears, that those fears are real. And so we become inactive and we do nothing. When we have more of an understanding and we can really see it for what it really is, we can see our mood for what it really is. And we can realize that we can still take action because the thinking can't tell us anything about reality. It can't tell us how true that fear is. It can't tell us about the future. It can't tell us about the what is or the, you know, the whether people are going to turn up or anything like that. And so what I also saw, in addition to that, and something far more powerful, and perhaps something I wasn't really expecting, I kind of knew it was there, but I never relied on it as a mechanism, as an inbuilt mechanism, was that when my mind was clearer of all of the kind of the thinking, all the fearful thinking, I could access my wisdom more. You know, that gut feeling that we all have. And I know when I talk to entrepreneurs and, you know, and professionals, they're like, oh yeah, I've got that. We never rely on it. So we're conditioned out of relying on it. And that had a massive impact on my business. Like it kind of blew it out of the water. Because what would happen is I'd have insights from my wisdom about the direction that my business needed to go in. And then I knew they were right. I knew those decisions were right. They felt dependable. You know, I could look at strategies and instead of like feeling all kind of panicked as, oh, what do I do? Do I do this? Do I do this? Do that? I could clear all of that. And I knew what to do. You know, I had that clarity. I didn't have any kind of muddledness or, well, what if this or what if that? And I had none of that. I just had the clarity to know how to go forward. I could choose the opportunities that felt right. I felt more connected, deeply connected with my clients. So I knew what to say. I didn't go up in my head about, you know, what investment it was or how much I was going to charge or anything like that, because all of that fear couldn't tell me anything. And I could just stay in the conversation with them. And if they choose to work with me, that was great. And if they chose not to work with me, that too was great. Because that other thinking I just let that go. And I started to see more and more the difference between my fearful thinking in whatever form it took and my wisdom. And the more I saw, the more I saw, and the more I saw, the more I saw. And the longer I stayed in the conversation, the more I saw. because that is the beauty, if you like, of this work, is that your wisdom potential is infinite. You know, it is constantly guiding you and constantly educating you as to how things really work and how to navigate you through. So it was like for years, it was like I'd created this fantastic illusion that there was something I could fail at. And more I saw that that just wasn't the case. You know, my thinking couldn't tell me whether something was going to work or not, or what was going to happen in the future, or what people were going to say, or it couldn't tell me any of that. But more importantly, it didn't really matter, because there was no pass or fail. You know, that too, as I saw it, was equally as made up as all of my fears that told me. So, okay, so I'd made up this pass or fail. And I made up this bar. I couldn't tell you what it was, but in my head it was there. Okay. And then I'd be thinking to myself, well, I need to pass that. You know, what if that doesn't work? In other words, what if I don't pass my pass mark of work? Then I began to realize that not only could I not see into the future, and that was made up, but this fictitious pass mark that often I would move the goalposts anyway, depending on how I felt, was equally a construct of my thinking. You know, and in many ways, you know, we're all like that. And I don't have any judgment for myself about this, you know, that I've got to my middle ages before I cottoned onto this. That's okay. And I truly believe that that's kind of part of the journey. But, you know, we grow up in a culture of pass and fail, you know, and I watch my kids and, you know, they have tests and assignments and they're graded, and even at primary school, they knew what table they were on and whether that was a pass or, you know, whether that was a good table or a not so good table, or whether their work got put up on the board or not, or all of that. We were constantly being judged. We were constantly being told whether there was a pass mark, whether there was a fail mark, you know. And so when we go into adulthood, well, it's not there, is it, anymore? We have no idea how we're doing. The truth be told, we really don't know. All we really have is other people's perception, and that can change on a moment-to-moment basis. So we have no idea. So we construct it for us to get that same feeling of safety that we had when we were kids, when, you know, we got put on the green table and we think, yeah, get in, I've made it, I've done well. You know, we still want that as adults. But the truth is that we don't need it to feel okay. We don't need it to be motivated. We don't need it to be creative or innovative or all of the things that we think we need it to be. We don't, you know. But because, you know, that there is no mark. It is only our perception. It is only all made up. There are no rules. And I remember once I said that to a client and she said, oh my goodness, you're such an anarchist. And I think perhaps I am, because there are no rules. Only the rules that we make up. And the flip side of that is when you say that there is no pass mark, okay, so there is no failure. There is no failure. Some of my biggest failures and I've had some really humdingers of a failure, have been my biggest learnings. And I really questioned the whole wisdom thing, you know, because I kind of went, oh yeah, I'm going to follow my wisdom. This is really cool. It's really exciting. And then bam, it all goes wrong. And you think, well, come on, wisdom. You're supposed to create this amazing life for me. You're not supposed to be, you know, putting me through all these things that are really hard and difficult and all of that. But do you know what I realized is that that was a step that I needed to take. That was something that I needed to learn, something I needed to experience, to take forward. And some of those experiences were really very, very unpleasant. And I really hope that my wisdom realizes that I've learned from them and they don't need to be repeated in the future, because I really don't want to go through that again. But boy, did I really learn some important things. Things that I know are necessary now in the business that I have now. And so many ways when we feel that we have failed, how I really see it now is it's not so much of a failure. It's more that we had an idea of what we thought was going to happen. And the reality didn't match that. And maybe it wasn't as rosy and great as we thought it was going to be. You know, maybe, you know, we did an event and no one turned up. Or, you know, maybe we put a product out there and nobody bought it. Or maybe we did a training session and everybody hated it. You know, these things happen. But that's not a failure. It just means that we didn't expect that to happen. And so as I kind of see it now is that when we have this freedom of mind and when we have this insight, we combine it with this insight, this wisdom, the trick often is to let go of the outcome, because we have no control over the outcome. And that's what we're really scared of. We're scared of the outcome. We're scared of failing. We're scared of that outcome doesn't meet what our expectations think it should be. But if we just let all of that go, and when we take a step that we know is right, when we've taken that step, when we have that freedom of mind, then there is no failure. There is simply just the next step. And then that is it. That is simply it. And that to me feels really calm. I don't know about you, but to me that feels really calm and really very straightforward and really clear and enormously freeing, because it allows you to take those opportunities to test the water, to try things out, to explore, to be curious, and to really enjoy being in whatever business that you're in. Because we don't have that fixed outcome in mind. So what I would really love you to do, if you want some kind of homework or something like that, but what I'd really love you to do is to really get curious about your fear of failure. Think of it as broader than just I'm scared of failing. Spot it in all its different, various, wonderful, beautiful, colorful forms that it is, and get really curious about your thinking. And be really willing to explore the truth of them. How true is this really? How much of it am I really making up here? And be open to start to navigate from a completely different place, you know, and test it out. You know, I'm really happy for you to test this, you know, and See for you whether there is a difference between when you navigate from that place of wisdom and when you navigate from that place of thought and thinking it through and decision making when you're thinking it through. See which one feels better for you. See which one works out better for you. And let me know how you get on, because I'd love to know. And that's really all I have to say for today about fighting your fear of failure. And I'm going to just open the floor just for a little bit for any questions. So if you'd like to use the chat box, then that's great. Or if you just want to sit with what I've said and just think about it, then that's okay with you. So I just leave it open for a minute and see if anybody has any thoughts or any questions. Okay. Well, I think you're all kind of like absorbing what I've been saying. I'd love to know what you thought. So obviously the community page, that's really where we can carry on this conversation. So just go on to the Flourishing Business Community. And if you have any thoughts or if anything occurs to you about this, then do come and ask me some questions on there. I'd be more than happy to answer them. And this is being recorded, so if you have registered, then I'll be sending you a link to the recording as well. But thank you very much. I am going to be doing the webinars on a weekly basis, so it'll be the same time, same place next week. So I'll put the link up to register. And thank you all for joining me tonight. It's been lovely. Okay, bye-bye now. Bye.